This presentation is about literacy. The topic is literacy for who? Literacy generally is an individualized task. One understands what they hear, speak, and then they can transfer that into reading and writing. In this particular instance, I'm looking at the beginners at primary school. They come to learn how to read and write. They bring in the listened and the spoken language. And as a result, you may find that not all of them speak one language. In actual fact, every environment is multilingual. However, in my article, the learners who are multilingual use one language to learn literacy. The teachers use one language to teach literacy. And they use a language which is being recommended by the government. The government of Botswana has got 2 languages, even though there are many languages in Botswana. It uses Setswana and English. And Setswana is the language that is used for learning literacy. And there's only one method of learning literacy, which is breakthrough to literacy. As such, those who come to school without speaking the language have to copy others. But literacy is about comprehension. It is not about copying. It's not about remembering. One has to bring his or her culture from home and express it by looking at what is in the classroom. If, as the case was, the books are written in Setswana and the pictures represent one culture, in such a case, Botswana has rubber-stamped a nation of one language, one culture, which is not the case. And again, this classroom practice that is prevalent in the classroom, it comes from the colleges of education. The colleges of education train teachers, and they train them in Setswana and English. Literacy, according to Wagner, takes about 5 years for one to be literate, continually using that language. However, the literacy that is taught in Botswana at Standard 1 uses only one language at Standard 1, and then it shifts to English. That means the learners have been exposed to only one language for a year. And those who cannot break through to Setswana, the interventions are not different to help them, because the breakthrough to Setswana is in stages. The stage 1, 2, and 3. If the child has not broken through or managed to pass stage 1, the teacher will repeat what she did with the rest of the class using the stage 1 steps. That means the child has to remember, not comprehend. Children show that they didn't comprehend by picking ways that do not work with with the utterance of the teacher. What the teacher says, in the assumption that children have understood or remember, they will pick a different word. This shows that they did not understand. The breakthrough to literacy, the breakthrough to Setswana, in fact, is a method that was adopted from Britain. In Britain, they use English, and they emphasize that is an approach that is learner-centered. And the learner-centered was not reflected in this classroom that I observed, because not all learners speak Setswana. Even those who speak Setswana do not look at things the way the book recommends or prescribes. They name that thing, whatever the stimulus, they name it differently from the book. And the teacher makes sure that she says the language that is in the book, because it's about testing. At a particular time, the teacher has to test children, and they should give the responses as according to the methodology. Children cannot name things differently, but they come with different language. In the end, the teacher will have to make sure that every child names that thing the same way. But according to Breakthrough, the child at given point must be able to write little story for himself, because they've been talking about that story. They should be able to transfer the listened to, the spoken, into reading and writing. But the breakthrough to literacy, as I mentioned earlier on, that is the mother methodology, that is Breakthrough to Setswana, adapted it. It was only in language or vocabulary, but not the approach. The breakthrough to English, to literacy, it focuses on learner-centered approaches. Children say the things the way they see them, the way they hear them, the way they have understood them. As a result, they manage to read and write. And parents are linked to their children so that they help or they support their children. Unlike in Breakthrough to Setswana, where some parents do not speak the language that is spoken at school. As a result, these children come to school without being able to read and write, and go back home without being able to read and write. They have to regurgitate. They have to remember, not create their own stories. And when they read, or when the teacher teaches them in English, there's no transfer of skills, because they are not grounded on concepts. As a result, the teacher keeps on mixing language. It becomes a language shift, because children would speak in Sesarwa, some would speak in Setswana, some would speak in Sekgalagadi. This is a mixture of 3 languages. In the end, the teacher picks the language from the children and uses the Sesarwa vocabulary, Sekgalagadi in particular vocabulary, even though the teacher doesn't speak Sekgalagadi or Setswana. Just because children have named some of the things in Sekgalagadi, the teacher now gets to know that this particular thing is named like that. And she would even say, in school, we don't speak like that. You only speak at home like that. In school, we speak in Setswana so that you can pass the tests. So, according to research, children should be taught through mother tongue. And I prefer to call it home language, because in Botswana, mother tongue doesn't mean home language. It means one language which has been endorsed, which is being supported by the government. However, the government does allow associations that could be formed, and there are some associations with regards to learning different languages. Botswana has a number of languages, and the country, or the population in the country, at least 80% of the population speaks Setswana. That is the language that is being used to teach literacy. And maybe that could have influenced the country to take Setswana as a mother tongue. But there are more than 20 languages, indigenous languages, in Botswana. English is an official language. Setswana is a national language. These are the only two languages that appear in documents or official documents of Botswana. But English takes preference or is of a better status as compared to Setswana because children start to learn from second year of primary school up to tertiary using English. That means, according to Wagner, these children have not broken through. That means they haven't learned literacy because they only spent 1 year at most to learn how to read and write. And we are talking about maybe a sink or swim approach because not all of them speak Setswana. So they are present and they don't have permission to express themselves. How do you express yourself without being allowed to speak your language? That means you come out from that without anything. So that is why the topic is literacy for who? Literacy for who? Is it for the government? Is it for the methodology? Is it for the learners or the learner?